So, why are people protesting? Bad policies and careless, irresponsible attitude towards governance of the Rajapaksa family are the sole reasons why people at last took to the streets. There has been massive inflation, which means price of commodities have increased to such a level that people are not even able to eat 2 meals a day properly. Foreign exchange reserves have dried up, due to which they have defaulted on sovereign debt, which means they could not pay back the money to the country or institution on time, which helped them in the time of need by giving them a loan. Sovereign debt is the money which the government of a nation owes to an individual, foreign country, or an organization. In April 2022, Sri Lanka entered its first sovereign default since 1948 when it got independence from British colonizers. There has also been shortage of medical supplies for which India stepped up and sent 25 tons of essential medicines to Sri Lanka recently. As the foreign reserves have dried up, the things which were usually imported from other countries like oil and natural gas can't be imported now, and the entire country has run out of crude oil, coal, diesel, petrol. Do you know what this means? It means people cannot cook food at home. They can't drive their vehicles to earn a living. There have been long power cuts. No oil supplier is coming forward to provide Sri Lanka with these fossil fuel requirements because Sri Lanka has not even paid the past dues. And everybody knows if they provide Sri Lanka with any more supplies, it is guaranteed that they will default on payments and won't be able to pay the required amount. Now let's talk about why and how these political crises were caused. The economic crisis had already begun in Sri Lanka in 2015, but the government of Sri Lanka kept ignoring it, and by this time, damage had already been done. In 2015, there was a change of government and the president. Ranil Wickremesinghe was appointed as the Prime Minister by Maithripal Sirisena, who himself became the president after defeating Mahinda Rajapaksa in 2014 presidential elections. The new government had already been warned about the bad economic practices being followed by Institute of Policy Studies of Sri Lanka, but still the government did not address it. Instead, they started looking towards matters which were not so important, such as constitutional reforms and giving things free of cost to the people. Although this government took some steps to control inflation and improve health of the economy with the help of IMF by raising VAT and broadening base of VAT by removing exemptions, but all these reforms were reversed when this government was replaced by Rajapaksa government in 2019. Talking specifically about the causes, first one was tax exemptions and excessive money printing. These tax exemptions reduced government revenue and caused a budget deficit to increase. A budget deficit occurs when expenditure is more than the income. In turn, to cover government spending, central banks started printing money in excess amounts even after IMF advised them not to do so. And this excess money, when entered markets, led to skyrocketing inflation. Second cause of the crisis is falling into the debt trap policy of China. To build Hambantota port, which is located on the southern corner, and Colombo Port City project, located on the southwestern side, Sri Lanka took help from China. The banks who were funding the project and the contractor who was building the port both were Chinese state-owned companies. The loan given by these Chinese banks to Sri Lanka was at such a high interest rate that China already knew Sri Lanka won't be able to pay it back on time. And hence, Sri Lanka was forced to give Hambantota port on lease to China for 99 years. Now, China can use this important port to place its military assets here in the time of aggression and will use it against India. Talking about investments, China is the only country which has its largest presence in Sri Lanka in terms of investments such as road and infrastructure projects, water treatment plants, etc. So Sri Lanka cannot go against China no matter what. This way, China has trapped Sri Lanka in its debt trap policy. Third reason was the fall of tourism sector due to 2019 Easter bombings and COVID-19 pandemic. Tourism in 2018 accounted for about 5.6% of Sri Lanka's GDP, but in 2020 it came down to 0.8%. Fourth reason was the agricultural crisis. The Rajapaksa government banned inorganic and agrochemical based fertilizers and pesticides and had an ambition to make Sri Lanka world's first fully organic farming nation, but it resulted in a massive loss due to less production in tea and rice farming sectors, which are very important sectors in the Sri Lankan economy. Due to this, Sri Lanka even had to import rice from foreign nations, although it was self-sufficient up till now in rice production. Fifth reason for this crisis is Sri Lanka's ever increasing foreign debt obligations. It has taken loan from so many countries and organizations that almost 80 to 90% of its revenue was going in fulfilling its foreign debt obligations, which led to its foreign exchange reserves to be emptied very soon. Sixth reason was the fall in foreign remittances. Foreign remittance is the money which a person who goes to a foreign country to work sends back home. This fall basically happened because Sri Lanka government had fixed the exchange rate of Sri Lankan rupee to quite low, that is $1 equal to 200 Sri Lankan rupee approximately. That's why people started using unofficial channels where exchange rate was $1 equal to 250 Sri Lankan rupee approximately, and it was more beneficial to them. Now, why is Sri Lanka important for India, and what has India done to help Sri Lanka in this difficult time of need? India has already extended more than 3.5 billion US dollars in assistance to Sri Lanka through various means such as credit line facility, currency swap mechanism, etc., with which Sri Lanka is buying various products from us such as medical supplies, fuel, gas, refined petroleum products, and other essential commodities. Sri Lanka is planning to obtain more economic help from India in the form of loans. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi also met Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida during the recent Quad summit in Tokyo and agreed to help Sri Lanka as part of Quad members. This signifies that India follows its neighborhood first policy to its core. Now, Sri Lanka is important to India, not so much with respect to trade, but because of its geostrategic location in the Indian Ocean. It falls on the Maritime Silk Road, which is a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Now, if China gets hold of major ports in Sri Lanka, then it will try to surround India on all three sides, slowly and steadily. As China and Pakistan have a common enemy, that is India, so China won't stop using Gwadar port of Pakistan as its military base. Basically, that is the real purpose of China behind holding this strategic port. Similar is the case with the Hambantota port of Sri Lanka. China is using both these ports, Hambantota and Gwadar port, not for the development of Sri Lanka and Pakistan, but for its own selfish commercial and military motives in the name of economic cooperation and development and whatnot. Pakistan is under huge foreign debt in general and Chinese debt in particular. And Sri Lanka has already hit rock bottom with all state foreign exchange reserves dried up. People on the streets protesting all across the country. So both these nations don't have any option but to give in to Chinese demands. And it will be very dangerous for India as China will increase in its presence in Indian Ocean much more and faster than ever, and will use it to blackmail various nations as well because it will get hold of one of the most important trade route connecting East Africa, Middle East, Europe with Southeast Asia. Also, it will create a maritime threat to India from south. Not to forget, we already have a tussle going on with China on land in Ladakh in the north and Arunachal Pradesh in the northeast. It's always better to block your enemy from surrounding you on all sides because they will attack on all fronts at once. And it will become very difficult for India to handle that situation if it happens. And we are all aware of the long history of Chinese aggression. So anything can happen if you are dealing with China. So for this, India must increase its trade relations with Sri Lanka, get Sri Lanka involved in various bilateral agreements with us so that Sri Lanka's dependence will be cut off from China and hence it will be able to save itself from that Chinese aggression by being on the side of India. I will make another video on India-Sri Lanka relations where I will discuss what is the relationship India and Sri Lanka share currently in various sectors, be it health, education, energy, etc. So I hope this video was informative and you learned something about the current crisis situation in Sri Lanka and how Sri Lanka is strategically important to India. Thank you for watching.